So, welcome to everyone. I ask you to please silence your cell phones. Um, yes, I did. Thank you. This morning, our prayer will be led by Representative Collins.
Please pray with me. Father, we thank you for the opportunity to be here for this beautiful day, for the knowledge that you are a good, good God. So we thank you for the blessings you pour out. We ask that one of those blessings be your wisdom as we debate important things for the state of Alabama, that you give us your guidance and your words and your attitude as we discuss these important things. So bless this day, and we thank you for all that you do. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Clerk will call the roll.
Chairman Garrett.
Here.
Representative Peel. Representative Drummond. Representative Almond.
Here.
Representative Baker.
Here.
Representative Chestnut.
Here.
Representative Collins. Here. Representative Calder.
Here.
Representative Daniels. Here. Representative Ellis.
Here.
Representative Faulkner.
Here.
Representative Lawrence.
Here.
Representative Lovern.
Here.
Representative Stubbs.
Here.
Representative Wood. 13 members absent, the roll, quorum is present.
Thank you. Representative Drummond has a guest, I believe, this morning.
I'd like to introduce one of my pages, Savannah Smith, who is from Coleman and Alabaster. Will you stand, Savannah? Please give her a round of applause.
Thanks, Savannah. This morning we have 4 economic development bills, which are one of the governor's priorities, the game plan bills. I'll be presenting 2 of those bills. Representative Colvin is out this morning, so I've asked our Rules Chair, Chairman Lovern, to take the gavel while I go to present the bills down there. So I have 2 of the bills I'll be presenting. The first up is HB 241.
Representative Garrett.
Thanks for the recognition. Let me get organized. As you know, the Jobs Act and the Growing Alabama Act really have been very key to the success of the state. We've had a lot of success in terms of our economic development for the years. The Jobs Act was passed first in 2015, and since that time we've had $22 billion in investment and 40,000 jobs as a result of programs under that act. We've also seen success in the rural areas where we've had 50 projects that were over $3.5 billion in capital investment, creating 6,000 jobs. Last year there were 10 projects in rural areas that will bring in almost $1 billion in new investment and more than 1,100 jobs. We've also been attractive in helping us to attract investment by foreign companies. The average wage is 31% higher than the wages in Alabama. Apart from the Jobs Act, we've seen a return of $5 billion of gross payroll growth, 57% return on investment. 20-year return is expected to be $9 billion, or close to 200% return on investment. Growing Alabama, which is a program that was designed to develop sites in the state, has been successful, and 25% of the site credits are reserved for targeted areas, which are primarily the rural communities. These programs both expire this year. It's important that we renew them because we need to remain competitive as we move forward as a state. We haven't done it in 8 years. 8 years is a long time in the economic development world. Certainly things have changed. Our economy has changed. What other states are doing has changed, so it's timely that we do this. The Lieutenant Governor had a commission, which we, the joint bodies, recommended last year, that looked at all of the tax incentives on the Jobs Act and the Growing Alabama and others, and made this strong recommendation unanimously that both of these programs be renewed. we want to continue to attract companies to the state, and they like coming here. The problem is, though, in terms of site development, we're running low on sites, and the surrounding states are investing huge dollars into site development. Tennessee has invested $90 million, Kentucky $100 million. Virginia is getting probably close to $500 million. They're talking about investing in site development, and we're at a point now where we're not really putting near that much money in. So this bill will address some of that. There's 4 bills in the governor's what we call the game plan. And the first bill is a bill I'll be presenting in a minute, HB 241, which is enhancing Alabama's Economic Progress Act. What this will do will be to raise the cap for these projects by $25 million annually for 5 years. It focuses on site development by moving some things that are currently in the Job Act into a different area, which is a bill that Representative Daniels will be carrying and discussing. It also will increase the funding for site development in the state for these projects, and will also enhance some of the transferability period for transferring tax credits, which is important to attracting companies and additional investment. The second bill that I'll be presenting also later today will be the Site Evaluation Economic Development Strategy Act, the SEEDS Act, and this bill is basically going to allow the development of more shovel-ready sites in the state. The third bill is the Innovation Small Business Act, which Representative Daniels will discuss later, and then the fourth bill is Enhancing Transparency, which Representative Almond will discuss later. So if you have HB 241 before you, which is the Jobs Act, again, this has been in place since 2015. I will tell you what the changes are in the definition. Do I need to do anything at this point?
Do you want to go ahead and adopt the sub and have the confirmation?
Yes, we have a sub. Let me explain what happened. The bill is originally introduced. We had some language added for tourism, which we've added, and that's a sub which you received last Friday. So I would move that we adopt the sub.
Okay, got it.
Chairman, I moved we adopt sub.
Okay, got a motion by Chairman Baker.
I can't do that.
Second by Daniels. All in favor of adopting the substitute, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, the substitute's adopted.
All right, thank you.
Garrett.
So in the changes from the current Jobs Act to what we have now is, number one, the definition of employee. The Jobs Act, as subbed, what you have before you, clarifies that the credits and the rebates that are applied for payroll relate to full-time employees, not leased employees. That's not clear in the prior act. This clarifies that. It also clarifies the Alabama residency requirements. The current practice of the Jobs Act is that if you are a company and you have company employees that work both in, maybe let's just say, for example, Tennessee and Alabama, then if you meet the employee threshold, you're able to qualify for the credit. When they actually compute that credit and calculate the credit, they only calculate the credit based upon the employees that reside in Alabama. That's the way we currently do it. It doesn't explicitly say that. This is just clarifying that existing practice. And this is consistent with other states. So all this does is clarify that these are full-time employees, not leased employees or part-time employees, and also just full, in the spirit of transparency, tells you we calculate that number based upon the Alabama residents. It also changes the definition of a related company. The related company definition, the previous, was a little bit ambiguous, and this just basically cleans that up a little bit, and it uses a 50% reference point as explicitly. It also adds renewable energy generation as an eligible category. So right now, various industries can qualify for these credits under the Jobs Act. Renewable energy is not one of those. We are adding that in recognition of the emerging demand for renewable energy and clean energy by industry. It also removes and expands tourism language. In the current Jobs Act, there's one paragraph that basically has a very vague discussion about tourism opportunities. My understanding is that there's been only one use of that credit, and so it's not really effectively doing what we want it to do. What this bill does was provide details and clarifications and sets of benchmarks and expands the scope of that within the terms of the Jobs Act credit. It also changes the form of the Jobs Act credit. Currently, if you have a jobs credit, so the Jobs Act has two credits, a jobs credit and an investment tax credit. The jobs credit is based on the number of jobs you create. Currently, you can take that credit as against a utility tax or as a credit, or you can receive a check. And in practice, no one takes the credit, people take the check. So what we're doing here is basically saying that in that that piece of it, the payroll aspect of this, you would only now get a check and there's a refund, a refundable credit as opposed to just a straight tax credit. It also adds language to clarify that no credit or refund will impact the Special Mental Health Trust Fund, which is what we use to fund the Department of Mental Health. So there are a lot of, there's the utility gross receipts tax, the funding goes into the Fundamental Health Trust Fund, and that's set aside again to fund the mental health activities of the state. And some of these credits that can be applied would actually be applied against the taxes that feed that fund. So this is just a safeguard to make sure that we do not use funds that should be going to the Special Mental Health Trust Fund for these credits. You would use unencumbered funds to do that. So this just protects the Special Mental Health Trust Fund. It also streamlines and clarifies language regarding the periods that credits can be claimed, extends it to 10-year period, increases the periods that credits can be utilized or monetized. So, for example, right now, a company who enters in one of these tax credit programs can sell 3 years worth of credits. This would allow you to sell 5 years worth of credits. So it extends that by 2 years, which makes it, again, more competitive with what other states are doing. And then it also adds language to require disclosure of information by companies who receive the credits. This is just a transparency issue between Commerce, Department of Revenue, and others to make sure we understand where the credits are being applied. And then finally, it increases the cap for the Jobs Act payroll investment credit from $350 million now to up to $25 million a year, up to $475 million at the when this is all said and done after 5 years. So increases the cap from $350 million to $475 million. Now, if you go back and look at 2015 and look at the budget at that point in time and look at what was $350 million as a percentage of the budget and compare that to where we are today with the budget we have today, which is substantially higher, and that 475 cap, you're actually below that threshold slightly. So that tells me it's an increase in the cap, but it's not disproportionate to the growth we've seen in the state and the success of this credit. The Growing Alabama portion of the Jobs Act, we actually have added some clarifying language to clarify where the Growing Alabama section begins in the act. It's a little bit confusing when you read it straight through. You shift from Jobs Act to Growing Alabama, not really understanding that till you get 3 paragraphs in. So it clarifies that. It also moves tech accelerators and underrepresented businesses to the Innovation Corporation. This is the bill that Representative Daniels will be talking about. But right now, the focus of Commerce has been on the industry, the traditional type economic development we've had. When you look at the kind of the knowledge base, the 21st century stuff, the base economy, the tech accelerators, that needs a special focus, kind of different to what we're talking about here. It also, we also have had, the legislature past several years, have really taken steps to try to drive investment in underrepresented companies, which are defined in the Jobs Act as women and African-American businesses. So that bill removes that from this bill, puts it onto another bill, which Representative Daniels will discuss, and will allow better focus in both locations. And it also will allow the Jobs Act, that will allow the Jobs Act to focus really on site development, which is really the point of what the initial focus was. And then finally, it increases the cap of Growing Alabama from $20 million to $35 million. And again, that's consistent with the growth in of our budgets. And then finally, there's a tourism section that's been added. Recall it was one paragraph in the current act. There's about 6 or 7 pages at the end, which is of your bill, which is the new language for tourism. What it does is basically set parameters, benchmarks, and definitions for what we're trying to accomplish with destination tourist attractions. It provides for the rebates of sales, lodging, and other taxes generated by the tourism projects, and it will has a cap for that credit for what the tourism might be. It limits the cap to $5 million per company per project, and it also says that no company may claim more than $1 million in credit per year. So it sets a cap and some limitations on how many can be attributable to a particular project, and then the use of that company each year can be no more than $1 million. That's a lot to absorb, but in this sense, that's what the Job Act changes are. Preserves a very good program we have, and enhances it, makes it more competitive, and streamlines some of the bureaucracy. With that, I have amendments, several amendments.
I understand you have 3 amendments. If you want to go ahead and discuss that first one.
So the 3 amendments I have. The first amendment I have is on page 3, line 57, before 35, increase, insert incrementally. So what we're doing is basically incrementally, let's see, let me look at page 30, line 57. Yeah, so another amendment I will have will be to increase the jobs, on the same amendment, is increasing the Jobs Act incrementally. So right now, the jobs credit is increasing. The overall cap's going from 350 to 475, 25 million a year. Under this section, the Growing Alabama went from 20 to 35 in 1 year. I'm incrementally increasing that 20 to 35, so it's consistent with the overall cap. So that will be that. So the top line just says incrementally, which is giving a nod to that. The bottom of that amendment page, page 1, says on page 40, delete lines 1103 and 1104 and insert the following. And it basically here's where you move from 20 to 23 to 26 to 29 to 32 to 35 over a 5-year period. Then the other amendment is on page 7, line 187. This is the language that defines related parties. As written in the original bill, it says any entity that owns directly through one or more entities 50%. This clarifies, it says any entity that is owned or is owned. So in other words, it's clarifying that we are looking at related companies, both those that are if you own or if you are owned. And then line 32, page 80, line 884, page 32. Page 32, line 884. This is where we insert the language to clarify that we're now beginning to speak about the Growing Alabama Act. So that is then there's one more on page 40, line 1103, 1105. Delete 2023, insert 2028. This is where initially it's drafted, the tourism credit was for 10 years, and it really should have been sunsetting after 5 years with the other. That was just an inadvertent typo. So that's the First Amendment I would offer.
Okay, we got the First Amendment offered by Chairman Garrett. Got a second by Faulkner. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of adopting the amendment, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, amendment is adopted.
Thank you. The next amendment is on page 46. This is into the tourism section. Page 46, after line 273, insert aquariums. On page 48, line 1325, delete rural and insert targeted. So in the Act, rural is basically defined under the targeted definition. On page 48, line 1325, delete distressed and insert jumpstart. Again, earlier in the Jobs Act, we defined a distressed county as being a jumpstart county. So that's just tying the definition together. Page 48, line 335, after 4, insert up to. So this is just basically saying that a rebate may be claimed up to, and you may have a cap or whatever. Your rebate is what it is, and when you can get to that 10 years or less, then you don't. It's not you get it over 10 years. You get it up to that period of time. Page 50, line 1374. Delete October and insert August. Line 50, page 50, line 1375, delete September and insert July. That would be the second amendment.
Okay, we've got an amendment offered by Chairman Garrett, a second by Baker. Any discussion? All in favor of adoption of amendment, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Amendment is adopted. Next.
And I have a third amendment, and I will say this relates to the tourism. So the tourism piece, again, is very expansive. We just received this on Friday. I think we all are in agreement that we want to support the tourism industry. We want to have tourism opportunities and make them successful. We want more than one person using the tourism credit. We want it to accomplish its purpose. But this came down a lot. There's a lot in this information to absorb. There's thresholds on investment in historic sites and non-historic sites. There's thresholds on mega sites. There's incremental kickers that kicker that credit that kicks in when you have $75 million investment. I think that just needs to be vetted. I'm not comfortable at this point in recommending all of that, but I think what we need to do is preserve the bones of this bill, the structure of this bill, and move it upstairs and let the Senate take some more, time discussing and us all vetting it a little bit better. So with that, what I'd like to do is propose that we cut the cap from 20 million to 10 million. Practically, what that will do, it's not going to do anything in the near term. It would still allow us to attract companies because right now there's nothing there, right? So it gives us a place to start, and then we can easily change that cap going forward as we feel more comfortable. So I think that preserves the intent and the structure of the bill, but it limits the exposure from the outset from the ETF, having not, in my judgment, fully vetted the components. So my recommendation is that we cut this from 20 million to 10 million.
Okay, I have an amendment offered by Chairman Garrett, second by Representative Baker. Any discussion? Representative Faulkner.
Chairman, could you explain that last amendment where you're proposing that?
Oh.
The cut in that cap? From 20 to 10?
Yeah, let me find the amendment.
Page 49, 48.
Page 50?
Page 48 and page 50. Put page 48, line 1323, delete $20 million and insert $10 million. And on page 50, lines 1380 and 1381, delete $20 million and insert $10 million.
That's just on the tourism?
Yes.
Any further discussion? Got the amendment offered and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Amendment is adopted. Chairman Garrett.
I'll have to answer any questions.
Okay, any discussion on the bill as substituted and amended? Okay, entertain any motions?
Move to give the bill a favorable report in the appropriate time.
Got a move for a favorable report by Daniels, a second by Ellis. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? HB 241 is given a favorable report.
Thank you, committee.
Chairman Garrett.
The next bill is HB 257, which is the Site Evaluation and Economic Development Strategy Act, SEEDS Act. The SEEDS Act will allow the State Industrial Development Authority, which is already in existence, to facilitate the development of shovel-ready, industry-ready sites. So right now, SEDA provides a $2 million grant to companies or to projects, to EDOs, to use for use in limited site development. What this will do, we maintain that $2 million, but would expand the use of that fund to include site assessment and further development. So in other words, we would expand the development they can do, which is very limited right now, but also would allow someone who has a property to hire a consultant to come and to evaluate the site for assessment to see if it's really a good project. The second thing, it allows CETA to issue grants to stimulate the creation of speed to market sites. It establishes mechanics for that process so that, for example, you can purchase land and you'll be able to invoke the program, which is to assess and then further develop sites. It also expands the role in identification, acquisition, and preparation of industrial sites to accelerate their readiness for private industry. That's really what this bill does. I will say the governor in the supplemental that has come across the street has also put $10 million into this grant fund. So right now, if you think about it, I mentioned earlier that Tennessee and other states are spending close to $100 million in site development. All we're doing right now is this $2 million grant, in addition to what we have with Growing Alabama. But this is a $2 million deal. The governor has put $10 million into that supplemental, which we'll be discussing as part of our process. We want to maintain that or maybe possibly increase that. But in addition, we'll maintain the $2 million that's going there right now. So I would, I guess, like to offer, I don't have a sub on this bill.
You have two,
I have two amendments,
amendments.
yes. Two amendments, and these two amendments, this bill was in the Senate committee yesterday. The two amendments there that they made and that we actually agreed to was, number one, on page, on lines 160 and 161 on page 6, replace those lines with this: preference to near-term needs. A board member acting in his or her official capacity may not be liable for any liability, loss, or expense suffered. So basically what the previous bill just said, that board members would not be liable, this has added some language to say acting in his or her official capacity would not be liable. That was a compromise with some of the groups. And then the other, that's one amendment. And the second amendment is on line 100 through 101. What this SEEDS Act has initially filed would do would be basically say this act applied to sites that basically were a minimum of 200 acres, and it reduces of contiguous acres. This reduces that to 75 acres. In some of the rural areas and some of the more remote areas of the state, it's difficult to find 200 maybe contiguously owned acres. So this would basically expand the people who might be able to participate. So both of those amendments, I would recommend. I was going to bring those anyway. The Senate moved those yesterday. So I would offer each of those.
Okay, let's take up your First Amendment, and for the replaces lines 160 through 161. So moved by adoption by Faulkner, second by Daniels. Any more discussion? In favor of the amendment, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, amendment's adopted. Okay, second amendment offered by Chairman Garrett. Okay, we've got a second by Faulkner. And any discussion? All in favor of adopt amendment, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Amendment is adopted. Chairman Garrett.
Be happy to answer any questions.
Move your bill for favor report.
Got a motion for a favorable report by Daniels. Second by Faulkner. Any discussion? All in favor of giving HB 257 as amended a favorable report, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, HB 257 as amended is given favorable report.
Thank you, members.
Thank you, Chairman Garrett.
Thank you. Next, we have HB 247 by Representative Daniels.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Today's HB 247 deals with the Innovation Corporation. As the chairman mentioned in the first bill, this is essentially the Innovation and Small Business Act, which focuses on renaming the Innovate Alabama Corporation, Innovate Alabama. This has been in existence for almost, let's say, over a year. But it started out, just to put into context for those members that are new, it started out as the Innovation Commission, and this commission studied and made recommendations to the legislature and the leadership in the legislature. And so we passed what they call the Innovation Alabama Corporation, which is an entity that focuses a lot on technology and growth, but focuses more so on small businesses. I'm fortunate to serve on the board of this corporation, and the work that this corporation has been doing up to this point. This is the first state public-private partnership, statewide partnership, where small businesses, veteran-owned, woman-owned, and minority-owned businesses are able to receive support, whether in phase 1 or phase 2 of their before commercialization in the grant process. And so when you're dealing with the technology transfer or the research and development, you find that the federal government funds a lot of these initial funding. And so the Innovation Corporation has been serving as more of a gap funding entity that has been helping support these efforts. And so the other thing that's inside of this piece of legislation that I deem is extremely important, when the chairman referenced accelerators, which was housed under the Department of Commerce, it will move over to the Innovation Corporation, where you have individual stakeholders that are from the public and private sectors that are experts on dealing with these type of, making these type of investments. And so, and making certain that the administration or the executives of these particular companies are indeed prepared to run these particular businesses and helping them in that process. The other thing that's important to note in this legislation is that one of the changes that's being made is in reference to 75% of the actual employees. Currently, we are only doing in-state companies that have a presence and headquarters in the state of Alabama that qualifies for the grant. This particular process, the amendment will, this change will allow companies that have 75% of their employees in the state, but also within a year, their executives, a large percentage of their executives will have to reside in Alabama in order to qualify for funding grant proposals from the Innovate Alabama. And so this essentially sums this particular piece of legislation up. It is a $25 million cap, annual cap, to expire July 31st, 2028. $10 million of the annual cap reserved for the tax credits and incentive companies, and so that's also the cap for that annually as well. Any questions?
Are there any questions from members? Move favorable, Representative Faulkner. Second, Representative Lovern. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Bill's given a favorable report.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Daniels.
Thank you, member.
Now next is HB 240, Representative Almond.
Well, good morning, committee. I am introducing HB 240, which is really the simplest of the four components of the game plan. I'm trying not to be too sensitive about the fact that I was asked to carry the very simple portion of the game plan. Basically, what this does, but I'm honored to do it, by the way. What this does is requires the Department of Commerce to publish on its website details of the agreement that they will enter into with these companies once that agreement has been signed and announced to the public. And you can see here that the types of information that will be listed: name of the company that's been incentivized, county of the qualifying company, estimated capital investment, estimated number of new jobs, estimated average hourly wage, estimated value of the jobs credit, estimated value of the investment credit, projected 10-year and 20-year return on incentives, value of any cash incentive that was committed. This will remain on their website for 1 year, and then after that, it will be moved to an aggregated section where it's combined with other incentivized companies' information. Currently, this has not been on their website. It has been provided if it's been asked for in an information request, but it's not been on the website, so this is something new that they'll be doing going forward. Are there any questions?
I see Secretary Canfield is here, and I'd like to just, if you don't mind, just speak to this bill. I think we all are for transparency. I think that's been something we've talked about over the years, we've talked about. I think there's probably some level of questioning, are we going too far? And we don't want to undermine ourselves in the process. So Secretary Canfield, would you speak to that issue and your comfort or discomfort?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the opportunity, members of the committee, to be before you today. Well, you know, you're talking to someone who's been doing this now for a little over 11 years, and if you'd asked me about doing this 11 years ago, I would have said not no, but hell no. But times have changed, and as we have matured in our process of how we incentivize and how we evaluate risk involved with putting forward an incentive offer, we learned through that process, and we actually were able to devise in 2015, with the help of the legislature, a very effective and very sustainable approach using the Alabama Jobs Act incentives. That approach has been very involved in how we work compliance and how we do internal financial analysis of projects and their potential for generating positive net returns to the state and to the local communities where these projects locate. But we live in a time where there's a lot of question and a lot of misinformation about how incentives are performing. And this is about trust. I mean, this bill is really about trust in providing information to the public, to the taxpayer, so that they can see what offers we're making and what agreements we've entered into. Are we sharing too much information? It's a lot of information, but is it too much? Probably not, because there are a number of other states who today are providing this level of information. Not every state, but the number of states doing this is growing. So I'm comfortable that we're not showing everything, because we are still protecting confidential trade secret related information that these companies want to protect. We also thankfully have protections in our Constitution that protect taxpayers' rights. And so we're not actually divulging individual taxpayer information about tax returns. All of that remains protected. So that being said, I think we're disclosing the right amount of public information, and we're balancing that with providing the public our own analysis of how we view the return opportunity to be in a 10-year and a 20-year measurement on something we call return on incentives. And then we will further balance that with aggregated data for all of the project activity so that we can show how the performance of the Jobs Act incentives are performing historically and over time. So I'm comfortable with this.
Thank you.
Long answer, but
Thank you. Any questions for Secretary Canfield? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Representative Almond, any other questions or discussions from members? I'll entertain a motion. Representative Ellis moves a favorable report, second by Representative Faulkner. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill's given a favorable report. So I believe with that, we have now concluded our agenda. Thank you very much. These bills will be on the floor tomorrow. Thank you.